So, tonight my wife is spending the night with her boyfriend. Yeah, boyfriend. How do I know she has a boyfriend? Well, she told me so herself. I couldn't have been more wrong in saying that. She told me this after I saw some text messages between her and her boyfriend on her cell phone. She forgot to turn it off. The kids were screaming and calling for her, and she put the phone on the kitchen counter to attend to them. I was walking by and noticed she was texting someone she only called S. It seemed odd, so I picked up my phone and looked at a few messages between my wife and S. I didn't immediately realize that my life and my family's life was destined to change. That was months ago. Those were difficult months. A lot has changed in those months. A lot of things. So, tonight she was dressed very nicely and took a small overnight bag with her as she left the house. She said goodnight to the kids and asked them to be good for me, and then looked in my direction. She tried to kiss me, but I deflected, turning my head so that she only got my cheek. I was still having a hard time accepting that she had gone on a date with another man and cheated on me. What kind of loser am I? It's the 21st century, I know, and we should be long past these archaic notions of fidelity, but call me old-fashioned. After coming to terms with the fact that Laura was going to date another man to do it with him, I went through several stages of grieving before I came to the decision that there was nothing I could do about it, so I'd better find a way to live with it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not happy about this at all, not even a little bit. My problem is how to deal with it and what the consequences will be. More on those consequences later. And let's backtrack a bit so I can give you some backstory. Hello, my name is Jason Fairburn, and my wife's name is Laura Staples. She decided not to change her last name when we got married. We have 2 children, both girls, Beth and Janie. A visit from a lawyer. So, shortly after I found out that my wife of 12 years was cheating on me with another man, I went to see a lawyer. I needed to know what my options were. I went there armed with all the indignation about it that I could muster, and believe me when I tell you it was a lot. My learned counselor looked at me, nodded her head, and after a few questions about Laura and I and the kids, she exhaled deeply, leaned back in her chair, and began. After I finished spilling out my emotions, she said quietly, "Are you done now?" and began to enlighten me about what divorce would mean for me. Despite the fact that there are 2.2 handguns for every man, woman, and child in Texas, there are virtually no violations in Texas when it comes to divorce. Shooting your wife when you catch her cheating, or the person she is cheating with, is highly illegal. In fact, all states in the U.S. are now no-fault states. That said, the scales of justice tip in favor of the woman if there are children in the marriage. Unless the mother is a serial killer or a whore, family court judges almost always give custody to her, and then figure out where the money to support the children and the mother will come from. So, in accordance with the wisdom of Texas family law, which doesn't allow any guns, despite every crazy bastard carrying 1 or 2, the mother usually gets the kids, and then the house, the furniture, the best car, and a shitload of money to make it all work. As a man initiating a divorce, all I would really do is get myself out of the house and away from my kids except for 1 night a week, every other weekend, and 2 weeks in the summer. Everything else would be my wife's and my money to pay for it. Essentially, I'll be paying my wife a bounty to have fun with another guy, and then I'll be 1 night a week and every weekend babysitting, so she has free time to go out and entertain whomever she wants. In the meantime, I am uncomfortably ensconced in my very spacious and not-so-luxurious refrigerator box under the bridge, along with other divorced fathers who have thrown themselves under the wheels of the proverbial bus, and looking forward to a few precious days with my kids, who meanwhile are slowly forgetting about me while getting to know my ex-wife's new boyfriends. Yeah, right. Like I'm going to let that happen. I asked my lawyer if I could kick my wife's ass to the curb. She frowned. That's a very bad idea, Jason. All she would have to do is get her lawyer to go to court, get a court order allowing her to return to the house, and then make you leave because of the obvious, hostile environment detrimental to the children's well-being. Then you'll find yourself on your ass with virtually no way to get back in. Nope. That's not a good idea. So, I'm totally screwed. My lawyer, God how I love her huge retainer, recommended a tactic I'd heard of before, but thought was just a ridiculous rumor told by people who don't know what the hell they're talking about. The plan actually boils down to cheaper to keep her or look the other way. Uh-huh. Isn't that great? Pretty damn great. The harsh reality was that if I put up with her, look the other way at her part-time boyfriend, I could spend time with the kids and keep my house and money. I tried to visualize that, and there were certainly advantages to it. I tried to visualize the other side of the equation, no kids and no house, and the picture running through my brain was more like a nightmare. I shuddered. A chill ran down my spine, and I immediately realized that being without kids and a home was not an option. With that harsh reality in mind, I had to decide what to do with my life, knowing that the woman I'd promised to love, honor, cherish, in good times and bad, in sickness and in health, leaving everyone else behind, for better or for worse, until death do us part. Had decided that part of our marriage vows, or agreement, or whatever it was called now, wasn't quite what she wanted. Yes. Marriage vows are just words. General rules that can be adjusted when necessary to fit the occasion or the circumstances, like wanting to do it with someone other than the person you married. Really, that's fine. I think of it with a very large dose of sarcasm in my thoughts. So, a few weeks later, after I was able to calm down and resist the temptation to beat the crap out of my sweet cheating wife, I sat down with Laura to talk to her about our marriage. She took it surprisingly calmly. I got myself a beer. We sat down at the kitchen table. I began, "So, I'm having a hard time understanding how we're going to stay married if you want some other guy." "Jason, you don't understand. I'm still your wife, I still love you, and we're still going to be together for the rest of our lives. What I do with Scott only happens once a week, and only because I need something that you, no matter how hard you try, can't give me right now." I shook my head and rolled my eyes. What the hell? Do you even know how I feel? I'm not giving you pleasure anymore? Jesus, Laura. No, that's not what I mean. Well, that's what you just said. Now I was already yelling. Jason, I meant to say, if you'll let me speak, that I love you and would never deny you anything. Oh, thank you, that makes a difference. It's totally fine now. I'm really happy to get some pity entertainment every now and then. There's that deep sarcasm again. I turned away and went into the kitchen. I suddenly felt like drinking another beer. I uncorked the lid, tossed it in the trash can, and sat back down. Laura came over and put her hands on my shoulders. Jason, I did everything wrong. Let's go up to the bedroom and I'll show you properly how much I love you. Why would you want to do that? You just made it clear that I don't satisfy you. You just said it. Why don't you pack a suitcase and go to your boyfriend? I'm sure that would give you a lot more pleasure than trying to please me. I got up from the table and left. At that point, I couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to smash something. Instead, I went to the basement office and closed the door. Shit. Thus began my life with an unfaithful wife who showed no remorse for her adventures. While she was out of the house, I moved all her stuff into the basement bedroom. Get it, bitch. I packed all her toiletries and shit into a box and took it all to the bathroom next to her new bedroom. When she got home the next morning, all hell broke loose. Jason, what the hell did you do with all my clothes? Where did you put them? Now she was screaming. Now I had her attention. I took my time answering as she stood there looking at me. Well, I decided that since you didn't want to do it with me, since you were obviously thinking about your boyfriend, I thought it would be best if we slept in separate bedrooms. Now you can come and go whenever you want. That's why I put all your stuff in the bedroom in the basement. Complete silence. Then I added, "You're welcome." I turned and walked away. As I left, I added, "Now you won't have to worry about having bad fun with me anymore." After that, it got very cold in the house. Laura. Damn. What am I going to do now? I'm not sleeping in that goddamn spare bedroom in the goddamn basement. Nope. As soon as Jason was out of the house, I got to work putting everything in its place. The kids, Beth and Janie, stared at me, perplexed as to what the hell was going on. I didn't stop until everything was put in its place. Then I got busy making a very tasty dinner. One of Jason's favorite dishes is meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and peas. It's a simple and not fancy dish like himself, but he and the kids really like it. When he got home, the meal was almost ready, and I told him to wash the kids and get ready for dinner. He did so. As we sat down to eat, the girls chatted about all sorts of kid stuff. Jason talked to them and watched them, but never once looked in my direction or said a word to me. After dinner, Jason got busy cleaning up. This was our regular routine. Whoever didn't cook dinner did the cleaning. Jason got the girls ready for bed. He read them a bedtime story and then turned out the lights. When he came downstairs, he went to our home office. I don't know what he was doing in there, but I could hear the computer keyboard clacking. When he came upstairs, I was already in bed. He took his usual shower, brushed his teeth, and silently got into bed. He rolled over to face me and turned out the bedside lamp. I tried to snuggle up to him and hug him, but he pulled my hand away and then tucked the sheet up so I couldn't get close to him. The next few weeks went pretty much the same. The overall temperature in the house dropped to 0. Jason would come around. I just have to wait and be patient. He will realize that the short time I spend with Scott means nothing to us or our marriage. Jason, a few months later. I haven't touched Laura since then in forever. My frustration level is growing by the day. To relieve the stress, I get up at 5 a.m. and go for a run. The first few days were brutal. I thought I was going to pass out or rip out some internal organ. My feet hurt, my ankles and my knees were screaming at me. By about the third week, things were getting better. My body wasn't hurting as much anymore, and I started to enjoy the early mornings. My distance started to improve as well. By the end of the second month, I was walking a little over 6 miles a day. At the same time, I lost a few pounds and physically started to feel better. Emotionally is another story. I have to do something, but what? Trailer. This was something I had been thinking about for a long time. I wanted to buy a trailer and a truck to go camping with them. What was I losing by acquiring them? What would Laura do? What would she complain about? I knew she would say, "Why the hell do you need a trailer?" My response to that would obviously be, "Why the hell do you need a boyfriend?" How could she possibly respond to that? I took the kids to the RV show and watched them, and to say they were excited would not be accurate. They were thrilled with the idea. Beth and Janie really wanted to go camping and traveling, and with almost every trailer we looked at, they made plans for where to put things and what to do when we got to the parks and campgrounds. I had a certain budget in mind when we started our search, but it quickly came to naught when I realized that modern camping in a nice trailer doesn't come cheap. In addition, I would need a truck to pull it. Trucks aren't cheap, and they require a lot of fuel to pull heavy trailers. Thus, I was faced with a couple decisions in front of me. Do it right, or do it cheap. The girls gave me the incentive to do it, and they were the ones who helped me make the decision. After much searching and deliberation, I decided to buy a used 2-year-old Grand Design Transcend model with bunk beds for the girls. There is a double bed for me. The trailer is well equipped with just about everything we would need for camping with a high level of comfort. 1.5 bathrooms, 2 TVs, which I plan on not using much, and even air conditioning. This thing is almost 37 feet long. All I needed was a truck to pull this monstrosity. I set out to find the right truck, and I got lucky. I found a 2-year-old GMC 2500 HD crew cab Denali with very low mileage and a diesel engine that an elderly couple was selling. She had health issues that made them unable to travel as often as they would have liked. Instead of camping, they planned to spend time with friends in Portugal. The Algarve region is very popular with retirees. I got a favorable offer and bought a truck. In total, I invested about $80,000 in the truck and trailer. I bought it and was going to use it to take my kids around and get to know our great country. I wanted to show Laura that this is an important time when kids are growing up, and she can choose to be a part of it or not. If she says no, then she has made a decision, and whether she realizes it or not, It will ultimately be her loss. Laura, a few months later with her boyfriend Scott. So, Laura, you said your husband and kids went camping. Why didn't you go with them? A long pause followed. I don't know. I'm mad at Jason for buying that trailer. So you don't like camping? No, it's not that I don't like camping. It's just him trying to tell me what I can and can't do. What does that mean? He's mad at me for spending time with you. I told him he doesn't own me. It's my body, and I can do whatever I want with it. So, I thought you and your husband agreed that you and I could go out and do it. That's what you said a long time ago. Well, it's not so much that he agreed. It's that I told him I was going to do it. I mean, it doesn't take anything away from him. I'm not sure what his problem is. Scott laughed. I think I know. He's mad at you for being dishonest with him. When you married him, did you realize that monogamy was not going to work for you? There was a pause in the conversation while Laura pondered this. Scott continued. So you didn't tell him in advance that you were going to do it with me? No, Jason didn't know. So how did he know? Laura took a deep breath. He saw my cell phone on the kitchen counter and saw the text I sent you. Then he went through my purse and found condoms, the same ones you use when we do anal. He pulled out the box, looked at it, and put it on the kitchen table. He looked at me and pointed at the box and then asked, So who the hell is S, and why do you have a box of condoms in your purse? I realized I was caught, so I tried to twist out of the corner I was in and told him, Why can't I have a box of condoms? He looked at me very wide-eyed, expecting me to say something else. What? That's all I had. That night, we had our first serious fight. A lot of yelling, some very nasty words. I told him he didn't own me and I could do whatever I wanted. This is the 21st century, it's my body, and I decide what I do. So, you took him by surprise. How did he react? He stood there, said nothing, and shook his head slowly. Then he walked away. What did you do? Nothing much. I came here later that night. Yes, I remember now. Then I want to ask you, are you going to leave your husband? Oh, hell no. I don't want to leave him. I love this man. I love our children. I love our home. We have a very good life just the way it is. I don't plan on changing anything. So you don't think Jason will eventually object to you doing this with another man? He'll realize it doesn't mean anything to us, to him. It'll be the same as it always has been. Scott made a, You might want to rethink that a bit. Your husband might not be thrilled about playing second fiddle to your boyfriend. What are you talking about, second fiddle? Well, if it were me, I'd kick your ass to the curb, just for fun. Why would you do that? No man likes finding out his woman is cheating with another man, at least not normal men. Does he like weird shit? Is he going to want to watch us do it? Hell no. Jason's not like that at all. So you do it with your husband? There was a long pause while Laura pondered the question. No, not for a while now. There was another contemplative pause. That's not good, is it? What do you think? Do you think your husband likes the idea? What can I do about it? He doesn't want to go near me. Why do you think that is? Another long pause followed while Laura pondered the question. What can I do to get him to touch me again? Oh, baby, you're totally screwed. I'll ask you again. Are you planning on leaving him? Because to him, it looks like you're going to do it. What? No, I don't want to leave him. Hell, I love him and our kids, and I don't want to give them up. But isn't that what you've already done? Don't get me wrong, I enjoy entertaining you. But I don't want to marry you. You do realize that, don't you? Yes, of course. So, as I see it, you have a very big problem. If you want to keep your husband and children, you need to do something, and very soon, or he's going to kick your ass to the curb and find himself a new woman. And then, you will be in a lot of pain. Maybe you and I need to take a break so he's back in bed with you, and you can start giving him what you've been giving me. You think that's what I need to do? Oh, hell. For a smart woman, you're incredibly clueless sometimes. Just try to entertain him. Laura fell silent as she pondered this. Scott waited, then asked, Do you like your family, your home, and the life you're enjoying with them now? Laura replied, Of course. Scott grinned. Would you like to live in a tiny one-bedroom apartment and see your kids once a week? No. Why would I? Scott continued. For heaven's sake, honey, get dressed, go home, make up with your husband, and pray it's not too late. Otherwise, you need to start looking for a place to live, because your husband will be ready to replace you with another woman. Trust me. Laura thought about it after she left Scott. Had she crossed the Rubicon with her attitude toward Jason? She didn't know. But she thought about Scott's offer to do for Jason what she had done for Scott, but would Jason let her? Whether she'd go too far. Jason. I loaded up the trailer and the girls started packing up their stuff to take with them. It was a week-long camping trip to a state park in the eastern Carolinas. The weather forecast promised perfect temperatures and light rain. I figured Laura wouldn't want to go with us, so I organized accordingly. When the girls were ready, we got in the truck and hit the road. The week went wonderfully. The weather cooperated, and we had time to do a lot of hiking as well as having fun. One of the days we spent at the water park. It was a very big success. Laura's absence from us was not as big a disappointment to the girls as I thought it would be. We talked about it a bit, and they surprised me. They noticed very clearly that their mom was spending less and less time at home and with them. How could I let them know that nothing their mom was doing was because of them? Everything she was doing was because, Laura. Damn it, I'm late. Jason and the girls went camping. Jason left a note on the kitchen table. We're going south on a camping trip for a week. We'll be back next Sunday. That was it. I called Scott and talked to him. They've gone camping. What am I supposed to do? Well, you blew it. You better hope your husband comes home with the kids. And if he doesn't? Then you're totally screwed. Other than that, there's nothing I can do to help you. You have to do what you have to do to keep your family together. Good luck. Scott hung up the phone. Jason. The week flew by too fast, and Sunday night the girls and I headed home. I had to go back to work the next day, and I had planned for the girls to participate in summer activities the following week. Their mother could pitch in and pretend to care for them and help drive them and pick them up. If she could take a break from her boyfriend for a while, that would be very nice. We pulled up to the house and I parked the car in the usual spot. The girls jumped out of the car and walked me inside like they always did. I was very surprised when Laura came out of the house to greet the girls. They hugged her and then dispersed to their rooms with their dirty clothes. I started fiddling with the camper, hooking it up to electricity and cleaning up the trash inside. Laura was hanging around and pretending to be interested in everything, but it was just an act on her part. She said to me, I'm glad you're all home. It's been really quiet around here all week. I looked at her out of the corner of my eye as I continued to work. How was your week with your boyfriend? There was no answer to that question. She added, What campground did you go to? I grimaced and replied, What do you care? You don't like campgrounds. Just thought I'd ask. It was a new campground in North Carolina. It's located near a water park. The girls seemed to like it. I continued working. When the trailer was done, I went into the house, unloaded all the dirty clothes, took the girls' things, and went to the laundry room to start the washing machine. Then I told the girls to clean up, and I would make dinner. I went to my bedroom and took a shower and then went back to the kitchen to start cooking. Laura was there. I can do that. I'll make dinner for us. She acted completely different, almost like she was actually interested in everyone else. That's okay. I'll make spaghetti and meatballs. I have the ingredients from the trailer and it won't take me long. I guess I was a little dismissive of her, but what the hell did she expect? I made dinner. The kids sat around the kitchen table discussing the events of the week, and Laura acted like she was interested in what we were all up to. What the hell was going on with her? She usually didn't care about camping. All she wanted was more time with her boyfriend between her legs. As we ate, I nonchalantly asked her if she was going out tonight. She looked at me and replied that she wasn't. I told her we needed to talk about the week ahead and who would be dropping off and picking up the girls. I had previously assumed that I would do all of that since Laura was no longer very reliable as a member of our family. She surprised me to the core when she told me that she would pick up the kids every day if I wanted her to. Won't that interfere with your plans with Scott? She looked me in the eye and replied, My family is my priority, you know that. What a load of crap. We've been on the back burner lately. This much I know for a fact. Something was going on. I needed to get to the bottom of it. A few months later. Jason, I've had some strange things going on in my life for a while now. Strange things. I have an uneasy truce with my wife, Laura. I've made it clear to her that even though she's doing it with her boyfriend, I'm not going to throw her out on the street or divorce her. My lawyer made it clear that I would be on the losing end of that. The kids will be on the losing end too. Why does Texas family law encourage infidelity? Laura likes her life the way it is, and she too doesn't want to rock the boat to the point where we end up living in two different places, and each of us fighting to have the kids with us as often as possible. The kids would suffer, and it wouldn't be fair to them. Hell, it would be very damaging to them and their upbringing. So I decided to stand my ground and stay married to Laura, at least until the kids were grown and able to make their own decisions about what to do after high school. That date was clearly marked on my calendar. So, after Laura informed me that she had a boyfriend and would continue to have fun with him at least once a week, I slowly went into defense mode and started doing a few things. I told you about the travel trailer I bought and how the girls and I went camping, much to Laura's displeasure. Laura saw my purchase as revenge. I didn't care how she perceived it. I wanted to do something I knew she didn't like and couldn't do anything about. But I had to do more than that. Everything in life has consequences. Laura had to see what the consequences were for her. We'll see? Yes. Laura. Since I started dating Scott, my schedule hadn't changed much. We've been meeting once or twice a week, usually in the afternoon. We have fun. We talk a little and go about our business. I enjoy being his woman for a few hours. It's very different than with Jason. How do I keep both parts of my life together at the same time? Now that Jason knows about Scott, he doesn't want to touch me, let alone make love to me. It's gotten cold in the house. And Jason is very secretive about what he does outside the house, by himself. Jason. State law says that infidelity is not a factor in a divorce. If we decide to divorce, Laura has a trump card up her sleeve. The courts don't care at all about who is having fun with whom. So when I decided not to divorce Laura, I began to question my responsibility in this new situation. If Laura could have a boyfriend and not suffer the consequences, and still be protected by the courts, why couldn't I have a girlfriend? It was the same thing. Quid pro quo or that goose-goose argument? Yes. So I gradually started doing things that I enjoyed and were good for socializing. And gradually it paid off. There were many online dating sites and even a few sites designed for married people wanting to socialize with others for fun. I stayed away from them, purely because of the possibility of meeting someone with less than honorable intentions. Call me a coward, but I have children to think about, and death at the hands of an internet stalker and serial killer doesn't appeal to me. No, I stuck to what I knew. It took me a while to get back on track, so to speak. I started and resumed activities that were to my liking. I joined a bicycling club, took up running again, learned to play an instrument, and hiked with my kids in a trailer as much as possible. Over time, I met some very nice ladies, and as they got to know me, we grew closer and trusted each other enough to learn about my family situation. They even matched me up with women for dates. It was through one of them that I met Diana. Diana is 3 years younger than me, divorced, and has a 4-year-old daughter. Actually, Diane is a member of the cycling club I belong to, but I didn't really socialize with her until another cyclist, Marilyn, introduced me to her. Marilyn and Diane were good friends, and after one of the weekly bike rides, Marilyn invited me to have a drink with them at the pub where many of the club members go. I didn't usually go because of the kids. I had to get home to make sure they were packed for school the next day. Not that Laura couldn't do it, but as luck would have it, I was always present for bedtime. Diane is an orthodontist. She is tall, dark-haired, blue-eyed, pretty, slim, very fit, and I learned has a keen sense of humor. Her daughter, Matilda, looks a lot like her. Over the next few months, we got to know each other better and went out a few times for more than just bike rides. I told Diane that I was looking for fun, not commitment, whatever that was, but purely for recreation. She replied to me that she was looking for the same thing herself after her ex-husband left her and Matilda. Diane told me that she had never camped in a trailer. She had grown up with parents who loved to pitch tents. We talked about it, and I invited her and her daughter to come with me and my kids to try luxury camping. That's how we got started. Laura had never wanted to go camping. She wanted to spend that time with her boyfriend. So I decided that I would spend that time with my new friend. I never told Laura that I was taking Diane and her daughter with me. I decided that what she didn't know didn't matter. If the state courts don't care about it, why should I care about it? A year or so later. Jason. The time has come. I've almost reached my limit. It's time to reorganize the universe a bit to deal with some long overdue issues. The Earth has been spinning on a slightly altered axis for some time now. I was going to try to fix it. More specifically, I was going to try to shake things up a bit. And I knew Laura wasn't ready to be a faithful wife and mother, and I wanted to have a serious talk with Diane. After dinner Friday night, I went out and bought a glass of wine for Laura and a beer for myself. I walked over to her and handed her the glass. She looked up. What? Are you in love with him? About what? Do you want to talk about, sweetheart? It's a simple question. Are you in love with him? Laura took a big sip of wine. She was looking at the glass. She wasn't looking at me. Come on, Laura. You know what it is. You started it. It's time to finish it. The kids were in the TV room. Now was as good a time as any to start. I don't drink anymore, but I enjoy a good IPA every now and then. I picked up the glass and started. So, how do we want to do this? The easy way or the really expensive way? What are you talking about, Jason? How long has it been? How long has it been? Come on, how long did you do it with other men while you and I were married? Why is that so important? How long did you think you could keep doing it? Laura took a big sip of wine. I continued. I mean, did you envision us growing old together, but part of the time with another man in your bed or with you in his bed? How often do you do that now? She looked up at me. Why do we have to talk about this now? We're both doing just fine with what we're doing. Why do we have to change anything? I shook my head and took a sip. I know what you've been doing. Do you have any idea what I've been doing? Well, you and the girls go camping a lot, you bike a lot, and I know you've been doing stuff. Yes, I've been doing stuff, as you say. Yes, the girls and I have been camping quite a bit since we found out my true value to you. And yes, I've done a few other things. And Laura looked at me with an amused expression on her face, like she wanted to know, but at the same time didn't want to know anything that would rock her boat. She was doing well. She figured that if we divorced, I would suffer the most, but the kids would suffer the most, and she figured I would do everything I could to lessen the impact on the kids. That was the main guarantee that she could do whatever she wanted. She knew that for the sake of my children, I was willing to do a lot of things. But she didn't know that I had my own life and plan too. Laura, you didn't answer my question. Do you love him? Are you going to keep him for a long time? Jason, I don't really have a boyfriend. I interrupted her. For God's sake, Laura, cut the crap. How long have you been having fun with Scott? And how many others have there been before him? And anyway, are those two girls mine? How long have you been using me? You've been a shitty wife lately, you know that. If you haven't realized it yet, I'm not happy with you and I'm not happy with the state of our marriage. Hell, it hasn't been a marriage for the last 2 years. And tonight, I want you to know that's going to change, and when the hell it's going to happen. What? What are you talking about, honey? Oh, cut the sweetheart crap. All I am to you is a security blanket, someone who does all the boring work in a marriage. For fun, you run to your boyfriend. You and I haven't touched each other in a long time, and I don't see us doing anything to change that. Laura remained silent. I continued. Then it's time for you and me to do something about it. Laura looked up. What are you talking about, honey? This was getting ridiculous. What do you think I'm talking about? I'm talking about deciding how to end this bogus conversation. I'm talking about you moving out of this house. I'm tired of being used. Laura looked up from her glass when she heard the words about moving out of the house. I'm not moving out of our house, Jason. It's just nonsense to think I'm going to leave our house. Well, it's pretty clear to me that you'd rather be with your boyfriend than be a part of this family. Decide what the hell you want, Laura. I stood up, finished the beer that was in my glass, and walked over to the kitchen sink. I could feel my blood pressure rising and realized I was close to snapping. I needed to get out of there. At this point, I had accomplished my goal. The glove was thrown, and I wanted to see how Laura would react. Laura, damn it! I have to get a lawyer and make sure Jason doesn't kick me out of the house. Why can't he just get over it? It's not like I'm denying him anything. No, I don't. But he hasn't approached me in a long time. He doesn't want me. Shit. He doesn't want me. If I can't get him to want me, we might be screwed. If Jason and I divorce, I get the kids, the house, and part of his income to pay for everything. Jason will fail if he tries to get rid of me. He won't want to move out. I'm sure I have a big advantage. I just need to be patient and things will fall into place. It would be better if I could get Jason to make love to me again. I love the man. I just need Scott too. I feel so good with him when we're together. Yeah, if I keep this up, everything will be fine. Jason knows that eventually I'll come back to him. This Scott thing isn't going to last forever. After a while, Jason and I will get back to our relationship. In the meantime, I need Scott as well. Jason. If Laura thinks I'm going to put up with her crap forever, she should rethink that. It's time for some of the consequences I mentioned earlier. I started working online on our family finances. I set up a new account just for me and transferred about half of our cash reserves into it. My paycheck and bonuses were also transferred into this account. Each month, I went online and transferred some money into our house account to pay half of our bills. And part of that meant it was time for Laura to realize that the freebies were over. She could pay half of our living expenses. I didn't want to pay more than I should just so she could spend money on her boyfriend. In fact, I knew she was having fun with him at his apartment, so she wasn't spending on hotel rooms, but I wanted her to realize the principle. Laura. I didn't want Jason to know that I had actually gone to a lawyer. I found a family law attorney and went to see her. She outlined the divorce law in this state, that it was a no-fault state, and that the mother always gets the children. She looked at me and asked, "You want your children, I suppose?" I replied, "Of course." She made a note in her notebook and then asked a few questions about my income and Jason's income. She also talked about child support, spousal maintenance, alimony, and how much we owed on our house. She asked, in a very roundabout way, if there were any reasons why I thought I would not get custody of the children. I answered her that I didn't think there was any reason why I shouldn't get custody of the kids. I am a good mother. She nodded. At the same time, I kept running a picture in my head of Scott and how my relationship with him over the past 2 years might change the court's opinion of me as a mother. As I left the lawyer's office, I was plagued by doubts that I could win a fight with Jason. How messy could the fight get? Diane. Jason called, and we made arrangements to go camping the following weekend. Matilda is looking forward to it. She loves relaxing in Jason's trailer. The 3 girls spread out in the back on bunk beds, and we can hear them talking and laughing for hours after they are supposed to be asleep. Jason and I occupy the bedroom in the front of the trailer and keep the door closed for the most part. No way in hell can I understand why Jason's wife is having fun with him. She must be monstrously stupid. Jason is a great guy. He's handsome, trim, smart, talented, energetic, has a great smile, a wicked sense of humor. He really makes me and the kids laugh. And it's obvious he cares about people. Too bad his wife doesn't care about him or his daughters. So Laura's loss is my gain. I divorced a jerk who didn't want to be a father, and I have a wonderful little girl who is my world. When I met Jason, he seemed like a man who needed someone to take care of him. As I got to know him better, I realized that his wife was using him. She wanted to have her cake and eat it at the same time. My friend Marilyn introduced us and told me a little bit about Jason and his wife and how she blatantly mocks him. Knowing a little bit about our state's divorce law, I realized that she had him cornered, and if he decided to divorce her, he would lose his children, and he didn't want that. So he put up with it until the girls were grown, and then he could tell her to back off. I make good money and wasn't looking for a serious relationship, but I needed a casual friend with benefits to relieve stress. Having a man is something that will be good for me, I thought. Jason turned out to be such a man. Camping with him and his daughters in his camper was a side benefit for my daughter and I, and simply put, we had fun. Matilda is very fond of his girls, and they treat her like a little sister. The longest we were together was 9 days on a trip to Florida. We camped near Disney and spent 2 days in the park. We did some hiking and spent time at the beach. It was great. It was a great vacation. Jason told me he really enjoyed our time together, and his girls obviously enjoyed it. We are making plans for more adventures. Laura. I went to see my lawyer again. It was while Jason was taking the girls camping in Florida. He was gone for a week, and I took the time to go to my lawyer to make sure I was sure of my rights to custody of the girls if Jason tried to force me out. My attorney is Claire Barnett. She is in her early 50s and has been practicing family law for over 2 decades. I wanted to clarify a few things. Claire, the last time we talked, you told me that if Jason tried to divorce me, I would get the kids, the house, and he would have to pay me every month. Well, yes, I remember we talked about your family, and you told me that the most important thing to you is that you have custody of the children. The court is usually on the side of that, and I can tell you that most of the mothers I deal with get custody. But there are exceptions. What do you mean? Well, if your husband proves to the court that he is the more appropriate parent to have custody of the children, then the court can agree to any request he may make to get primary custody. It is not a fact that the mother always gets custody. If the mother is deemed unsuitable for some reason, the court will not automatically give her custody. Judges are not blind, and I know of several cases where the father rightfully got custody. Laura, is there anything I should know that might affect my ability to secure custody for you? No. What aren't you telling me? I can't help you unless you're completely honest with me. Well, Jason spends a lot of time with girls, but so do I. Could you define that a little more, Laura? What exactly do you mean by that? Well, Jason often takes the girls camping and attends all of their school events. And you go with them. I don't really enjoy that outdoor recreation, and I hate bugs. Besides, my job is very demanding, and I have to miss a lot of school events. Claire rolled her eyes. She knew her client was deceiving her. She knew Laura was telling her this to make herself look good. The problem was that the family law courts saw right through it and were well versed in who was the best parent to take care of the children. Her husband's lawyer was going to make sure the judge knew all the details of their relationship, all the work he was doing, and how much she missed her own children. Damn. She had a lot of work ahead of her now. The family court didn't care that Laura wasn't having fun with her husband, but with some other man. The court didn't care that Jason was having sexual relations with another woman. None of that mattered. What mattered was which one of them was doing a better job of raising the children. The fact that Laura was a stay-at-home mom put Jason ahead in comparison. Claire had to tell her client some of the things she had to fix. So, Laura, I don't know how to tell you. What? I'll tell you straight up. Unless you step up and become a more proactive mother, your chances of having custody of your children in the event of a divorce are, in my estimation, very slim. What? Are you seeing another man right now? Well, is that kind of a yes or no question? Ah, yes, I am. How much time do you spend with him? We only see each other a few times a week. How much time do you spend with him, really? Hours, times of day and night. Not that much. Claire raised her hand to stop Laura. If you're not completely honest with yourself and me, you can forget about custody of your children. How much time do you really spend with your boyfriend? Laura told the attorney about how much time she was spending with Scott. Claire visibly wrinkled her nose as she made notes in her legal pad. Things were not working out in the best way. Claire knew that when it came time to fight in court for custody of the children, if it came to that, Laura would look like she'd almost abandoned her family to have fun with her boyfriend. And that wasn't good at all. Shit. Jason. So, it was time for the first round of consequences for my sweet, unfaithful newbie wife. It was Saturday night, and the kids had already gone to bed after a busy day. I walked over to the refrigerator, grabbed a beer, and pulled out a bottle of wine for Laura. She looked at me out of the corner of her eye, remembering that when I needed to talk about important things, I always poured her a glass of wine. She cleared her throat slightly, looking at me. It's a little late for a beer, isn't it? It's only 9 o'clock. I want to talk to you about a couple things. What kind of things? Well, I want to talk about our marriage and how we're handling it. About the day-to-day affairs of married life. We need to clarify our individual responsibilities. Who's going to be responsible for what? What exactly do you mean by that? I mean that you and I need to get a better understanding of what each of us is responsible for on a daily basis. I've made a list of a few things, and I'm sure you'll have something to add. Let's get started. Laura took a very large sip of wine. I took a sip of beer and pulled out a notebook in which I wrote down a few things. So, first we need to get some financial aspects of our lives sorted out. We need to decide how much each of us is contributing to pay for things. I know you weren't thrilled that I bought a truck and a camper, so it's up to me to pay for that, but running the house and the kids and all those expenses is a shared responsibility between us. I let that sink in for a few seconds. So I think making a basic budget to clarify who pays for what would be the right thing to do. Laura looked at me like I was an 18-wheeler bearing down on her. I laid out what I thought was a reasonable breakdown of the expenses each of us should be paying. I wasn't going to fund her relationship with her boyfriend, that's for sure. And I wanted her to see that as someone who takes care of all the bills that need to be paid, I wasn't so keen to keep paying for everything and let her enjoy other activities. No. We talked until late into the night, and it was 1 a.m. when I yawned, stretched, told Laura I was done for the day, and got up to go to bed. I left all the paperwork I'd gotten out, our monthly bills and financials, right on the desk. Leaving it there, I headed for a shower in bed. Laura. What the hell? Jason wants to split our finances and make each of us contribute half of all the costs of keeping the house and paying the kids' tuition. Damn. He knows I don't make as much money as he does. When I told him that, he just looked at me and said, "Maybe you should consider a higher-paying job." As if I could do that. It's all about Scott and the time I spend with him. 4 days later, Claire's lawyer. Claire began, "So, Laura, what did you want to see me about so soon? Have you decided to file for divorce from your husband?" "No, but last Saturday night he wanted to talk about our family finances, and he wants each of us to contribute 50% to running the house and paying for the day-to-day affairs." Claire's eyes got even bigger, and her eyebrows raised slightly. "Tell me exactly what you and he talked about." Laura began to tell me about the long conversation she had with her husband that Saturday night. I asked her some questions and took some notes. It was becoming very clear to me where things were going. It also became clear to me that my client had only told me half the story and was trying hard to avoid the consequences of having fun with her husband. It turned out that sweet little Laura had been having fun with a guy other than her husband for almost 3 years. Her husband found out about 2 years ago and, after meeting with an attorney, realized that he would only be paying for her to have fun, and in the process would likely lose the kids and a lot of money. This is what I usually have to tell my male clients who catch their wives having fun with them. Sad, but true. Everything Laura told me led me to the conclusion that her husband was laying all the groundwork for a separation agreement. An interesting fact about a separation agreement. This type of legal document is designed to divide responsibilities before divorce proceedings begin. It is actually a prelude to divorce, and it certainly signals the deterioration of the marriage and the beginning of the division of the family's assets and the resolution of major issues. In the case of Laura and her husband, the main issues were their 2 daughters, which parent would have primary custody of them and who would live in the home. Laura was unable to prove that she was the best parent for custody of the children. She was spending time with a boyfriend in a sexual relationship while her husband was spending that time with the children. Family law courts take this sort of thing very seriously. Jason was quietly building his case in favor of custody, and I felt he was doing a pretty good job of it. I tried to tell Laura that things were not going well for her, that her husband was preparing to present to the court that he and his wife were really living almost apart, that they weren't spending much time together, and each was contributing about half of the family's daily expenses. Jason made more money than Laura, so he could afford to take care of the kids even after he and Laura were physically separated by 2 houses. Shit. Laura. I need to get Jason back in my bed and back to being my husband again. I know he must be desperate. We haven't had fun in months. If I can get him back in our bed, it won't take him long to start doing it with me. He'll realize that this Scott thing means nothing to him. Scott only gets the crumbs from Jason's table, really. I'm Jason's wife, and my time with Scott takes nothing away from being Jason's wife. Jason. Lately, Laura has been hinting that she still wants to do it with me and that she won't deny me anything. A chill runs down my spine. The idea of doing this was so ridiculous. I wasn't going to have fun with a whore. It wasn't going to happen. After the girls had gotten into bed, she'd given me strange looks and even hinted that she wouldn't mind having fun with me. I don't know what motivated her to do that, but at this point I didn't care. All I wanted was for her to leave me alone and mind her own business, taking care of the girls and the house. Everything else was just business. When the girls grew up and went off to university, I could do whatever I wanted and end this travesty of a marriage to Laura. She could leave to her next husband. He could deal with her need to have fun with other men, not my problem. Time is running out, a few months later. Jason, enough said. I've been thinking a lot lately about ending this shitty marriage. Regardless of the outcome, I've lost the ability to tolerate our current situation. Diane and I are starting to see our life together, which means I have to do something about Laura. I have to push this whole train wreck over the edge. I have to give her the right push. I've decided to go visit Scott. I know where Scott works and lives. I decided he and I needed to have a heart-to-heart talk about Laura, about him, and about their future together. It was a Wednesday, around 6 in the evening. I leaned against the hood of Scott's car as he left the building where he worked. He was on the phone as he approached, and when he saw me, he dropped the phone on the ground. I heard him mutter a F****KU. You better pick it up. You don't want to lose it. Phones are expensive. He watched me carefully as he bent down to get the phone. I'm sure he should have known I was here to kick his ass. I wasn't about to do something I could go to jail for. That would mess up my future plans, big time. Don't worry, Scott. I'm not here to hurt you. Quite the opposite. We need to talk. I nodded at my car. Get in. I'll buy you a beer and we'll settle some things that are long overdue. He looked around for my car, but I was in the truck, not my usual car, an old Subaru Outback. Scott slowly walked over to the passenger side of the truck and looked around the back seat, thinking there might be someone sitting there to do all the dirty work I had in mind. Slowly he got in. Don't forget to buckle up. I drove to an Irish pub I liked, but hadn't been to in a while, so I was sure I wouldn't see anyone I knew there. I parked and got out of the car. Scott slowly got out of the car, and I honked my locks and headed for the front door. Come on, it's okay. I gestured toward the entrance. We walked inside, and I found a table for us in a quiet corner so we could talk. I waved to the server, ordered an IPA, and nodded to Scott to tell the girl what he wanted. I'll have the same, please. I looked at him and saw that his fear was so intense you could cut it with a knife. He stared at me intently. Not a word was spoken until the girl brought the beer and I took a sip. I knew what I wanted to say to him. I just had to remember my script and stick to the plan. I really wanted to jump over the table and beat the shit out of him. But that wasn't going to work. So I had to go back to the basic plan. I began, "Okay, it's time for you and me to work something out." He looked like he was going to get up and run away. Relax. Things will probably work out in your favor. I want to know a few things. I have some questions I want honest answers to, or our next meeting will be in a very dark place. He started to push back his chair. I said, "Relax. If you talk to me, you'll probably get away with it. How long have you been entertaining Laura?" He took a big gulp. For a while now." His voice shook. "Define for some time now a little more precisely, please." He swallowed. "A little over 3 years." I nodded, inwardly thinking that the possibility of him being the father of any of my children was now eliminated. That was a good thing. It saved him from a beating in the dark. "Why did you and Laura start doing this?" Scott looked at me like I'd just grown a second head. I added, "Come on, it's not that hard a question. How did you and her first meet?" "We met and got to talking. She told me that there was a rut in her marriage. She said she was tired of the routine. You didn't have any fun with her, just work, kids, and household chores. We agreed to have a drink together, and everything went back to normal." As he uttered these words, he threw me a confused look. "It went on from there." Damn it. I swallowed hard, preparing myself for the next question. "Do you and her love each other? Have you been having fun with her for a long time? Have you developed feelings for each other?" He refused to look at me. I continued, "Come on, just try to be honest with me. I'm not here to tell you how you should or shouldn't feel about her. We've already gone beyond that." Scott took a big gulp to build up the courage to answer me. "It's complicated for me. I have feelings for Laura, but not to the point where I want her to leave you. I like our relationship. I like doing it without commitment. I'm not 30 yet, and I don't want to dwell on one person." "How many women are you doing this with?" When people won't look at you when they have to answer, it usually means you won't like the answer. I knew what the answer would be. "You don't have an exclusive relationship with her, do you?" He shook his head to tell me no. I leaned back in my chair and thought for a moment. I figured Laura was quietly counting on him to be her backup if things went horribly wrong with me. If she found out that Scott wasn't exclusive with her, it would just be a shit show. But that wasn't my problem. "Well, bud, be prepared for her to show up on your doorstep with a suitcase. You may not have realized it, but having fun with someone else's wife is fraught with consequences. You go ahead and do whatever you want." I'm not going to tell Laura what she can or can't do, who she can or can't have fun with. No, but that doesn't mean I won't do other things. Some of those things may not be what you want, but right now I don't care about you. I stood up and tossed the $40 on the table. Turning to leave, I told him, "You should be careful in dark places," and walked away. Laura. I needed to get out of the house. I went to Scott's apartment. He let me in, looking around the hallway to make sure I was alone. We spent a couple hours together. His excuse was that he had a doctor's appointment and needed to go. I started to get dressed and he almost pushed me out into the hallway. Jason. A week after talking to Scott, I decided it was time to take the next step. My attorney had all the papers prepared and was to deliver them to Laura. I told her that I wanted to receive them at my home, No need to be embarrassed by filing a petition for dissolution of marriage elsewhere. I had all the proof I needed to go to court and get full custody of the girls. Diana waited quietly in the background while I gathered my thoughts. She and I had become close. That's a massive understatement. When the dust from the divorce settled, I intended to ask her to come live with me. I really love this woman. She is a pleasure to talk to, has a charm and personality that I never tire of. Her sense of humor makes me laugh, and so I make sure to keep her and the 3 children laughing. We have a great time together. Would we be able to become a family? That I didn't know, so it was a big question that could only be answered after my divorce from Laura and a period of time where she wasn't lurking in the background. I decided to talk to Laura in the evening after the girls went to bed. I brought her a glass of wine and handed it to her. She knew something serious was about to happen. You have to stay home tomorrow morning. There will be a package for you. What? You know what it is. She leaned back in her chair and exhaled. I knew this could happen. Why do you have to do this? Can't we just let each other do what we need to do for a while? Why does it have to come to this? You're the one who started it. You knew I wouldn't tolerate you having a boyfriend on the side for sex. But you also knew that divorce courts don't really care about infidelity. With 2 kids to deal with, you were counting on the courts to give you custody, and in the end, I would be the one paying so you could have fun. You knew that I would do almost anything to keep my children. So you went ahead and did what you wanted to do. You ignored my wishes. All I wanted was a wife who would take care of her family enough to keep her legs closed to other men. But no, you couldn't do that. You had to go out and find yourself a guy to have fun with and not care about the consequences to your family. Well, now it's time to find out what the price really is. I needed to get my emotions under control, so I stood up, walked over to the fridge, and pulled out a beer. My blood pressure must have gone up because I felt my face turn red. I poured the beer into a glass and went back to the table. Better to discuss things now than pay lawyers a lot of money to sort things out later. Jace, I'm going to fight with you against the divorce. I love you and our family. I held up my hand. You show your love pretty damn poorly. You've shown your love for Scott. Don't sit there and say otherwise, because I know you are lying to me and yourself. Your actions speak louder than any words. She looked at me. You know I will get custody of the girls, and all you will see them is once a week and sometimes on the weekends. And you'll be paying to keep us all here. I know you don't want that. Stop this ridiculous divorce. You and I will be a couple again, and everything will go back to normal. I know that's what you want. 18 months ago, yes, that's what I wanted. But not now. You've done too much to poison this water. Let me ask you this. Are you ready to give up Scott? That question formed an empty space. Why don't we come to some sort of agreement? I'll spend time with him and you can do what you like. I'll even agree to go camping with you and the girls. You'll love it. I know the girls will too. I started to lose control of myself. Would you like that? I mean, it's not until your back is against the wall that you try to bargain your way out of the corner you've backed yourself into. Why are you agreeing to go camping right now? I don't want you to abandon our family for something that means nothing to us, to you and me. My time with Scott doesn't take anything away from you. You're spending time with the kids. You love it, and they love it. You know they love it, and I know you love being with them. Don't do that. Don't lose them just because I spend a couple hours a week with someone else. I wanted to say something, but I couldn't give away the tactic my lawyer had planned when we got to the main event. Laura, I used to love you very much. But when you started giving your love to another man, you should have known there were consequences. Jace, I don't love him. What we do is purely recreational. I love you and our children. You are my family. If you would come back to our bed, I could show you what you mean to me. Do you love me enough to give up Scott? There was no answer, Laura staring at her hands in her glass. I thought I didn't. I know what I'm supposed to do. Don't go to work in the morning. Good night. I went to bed. Laura. Jason got up early and got the girls ready for school. We didn't say a word to each other before they left. The girls barely looked at me and didn't say bye as they walked out the door to school. 1,000 thoughts ran through my head until I heard the sound of the doorbell. I walked to the door and was greeted by a middle-aged woman wearing jeans and a sports jacket. Attached to the pocket of the jacket was some sort of identification badge. "Good morning, are you Laura Staples?" "Yes, I am." "Ma'am, may I see some identification to verify this, please?" I went back into the house and pulled my driver's license out of my purse. I held it out to her, and she took a picture of it with her phone. She then picked up a large brown envelope she was holding under her arm and handed it to me. "Ma'am, you've been served." Before I could say anything, she took 2 steps back and took another picture of me holding the envelope. What the hell? She turned around, walked quickly to her car, and drove away. For a moment, I froze on the front step, stared at the envelope, and realized I had just been served divorce papers. That was it. I walked into the house, put the envelope on the dining room table, sat down and looked at it. For a second or two, I thought that if I didn't open it, it wasn't real. Jason wasn't going to end our marriage. I could keep doing what I wanted to do. But for the first time, I wondered if spending time with Scott wasn't such a good plan. What was I supposed to do now? I grabbed a glass of water and sat at the table, staring at the envelope. Very slowly, I picked it up and used a knife to cut the flap off the end. Inside was something that was going to change my life. Why did Jason have to do this? Why couldn't he just let me have it? Eventually, it would be over, and it would be just the two of us. We would be together while the girls grew up and went to college. We would be able to travel more and do the things we talked about doing after we got married. We both work a lot, and that leaves us little time for intimacy. Me being with Scott every now and then wasn't a big deal. It didn't interfere with my family. It didn't mean anything to Jason. So why did it become such a big deal? When I came home after being with Scott, my itch was relieved, and I was becoming a better wife and mother. What Jason didn't know wouldn't hurt him. I was stupid to admit to cheating with Scott. I should have made more of an effort to keep it a secret. And now look what happened. Things got out of control. I need to call Claire and go see her. Claire, Laura's attorney. When Laura Staples came to my appointment, all panicked, I realized that her husband had had enough of her and had decided to pursue a divorce. From my personal perspective, he had been too patient with her. But after reading the divorce papers that his attorney had prepared, I realized why. The case for her husband to get full custody of the 2 minor children from the marriage and maintain the family home was carefully prepared. He meticulously documented the time since her affair with her boyfriend came to light, pointing out all the many times Laura was not with the family when, in good judgment, she should have been with them. There were school events, family vacations, camping trips, daily routines, dropping off and picking up kids from school and from friends, after-school sports and recreational activities, even Christmas school concerts. Jesus. At first glance, all of this painted Laura Staples as an absentee parent who didn't care at all about spending time with her family. It also listed all the evenings and weekends that Laura intentionally spent with her boyfriend, one Scott Williams, and even their appearances in public with public displays of affection. Names were listed of people, mostly friends of Jason and Laura, who had seen her in public with Scott Williams. Oh my God. There were even printouts of pictures people had taken with their cell phones of Laura and Scott in public, together, holding hands and kissing. The pictures were taken by Jason and Laura's friends and given to Jason in various ways. Laura was totally screwed, and not just in one sense. She sat quietly in the chair behind my conference table while I went through the papers. I tried to imagine the questions a family court judge might ask and the answers that would be given. It was interesting to hear Laura try to justify her actions with Scott Williams. It wasn't that she was having fun with Scott Williams. That rarely bothers the family courts. It was that Laura Staples ignored her children and husband to spend time with Scott Williams. Yes, this was something that should have sunk her ship. I tried to prepare myself to tell Laura that she was essentially going to lose, and it might be better to basically agree to the demands her husband was making. Sure, they could agree on some small things: furniture, her jewelry, savings, a car, and a few other things. But in general, Jason wanted to have his kids, his own house, and keep most of his income to support the kids. Everything else was insignificant details to him. Laura, have you read this dissolution of marriage petition? She stammered slightly. I read it cursorily, but I can't remember the details. How do I stop this divorce nonsense? Jason and I and my girls are one family, and I want to keep it that way. I was beginning to think my client was delusional in some way. She was ignoring the reality of the situation. Jason held most of the cards in this game, and I was going to have to work hard to even things out. Laura, I need to speak with your husband's attorney before I can advise you on what you can and cannot do in this situation. Remember, you and I have talked before about the kinds of things the courts take into account when considering which parent is best to award custody of the children. As I read this, I'm not sure you're going to get custody, at least not to the extent you want. As far as Jason remaining your husband, that's not going to happen. What do you mean? I can't lose him. He's the father of my children. He and I are married. He can't just walk away from me and the kids. Her tone was indignant. I looked into her eyes, leaning forward slightly. You've forgotten what we talked about, haven't you? The law allows you to get a divorce no matter what you want. It's clear here that Jason is determined that you and he will not marry. It's also clear that he wants his children to be with him, not you. Laura leaned back in her chair and fidgeted slightly. It's Scott, isn't it? Jason is jealous of Scott. And you thought he wouldn't be? You cheated with Scott Williams for 3 years, ignoring your husband and kids, and you thought Jason wouldn't care? How do I fix this? There's no fix. There's just trying not to lose it all. I paused, and then had to say the blindingly obvious. What do you think should have happened? I got no response from my client. I hate it when they ignore their own misdeeds. She was being stupid. So, Jason asks that you move out of the marital home no later than the date the divorce is finalized. In Texas, there is a 60-day cooling-off period. During that time, you have to get all of your financial and children's affairs settled. Therefore, if you and he agree on the details and signatures, the court can grant the divorce after 60 days. Otherwise, it will take 90 to 120 days. Can I ask for marriage counseling? You can, but it must begin during the cooling-off period I mentioned and end, before the 120 days are up. Do you think Jason might change his mind about getting a divorce if you and he see a marriage counselor? Laura let out a heavy sigh. It was slowly dawning on her that Jason was fed up with her infidelity and wanted to leave her. I decided that Jason was a very smart man who, with the advice of a good attorney, had prepared everything necessary for a successful divorce. Laura, I'll ask for an appointment with Jason and his attorney for later this week, and we'll see how adamant he is and what we can do. Good. What do I do now? Go home, be with the kids, try to talk to Jason. You're both still at home, I assume? Laura nodded. Go home and try to talk to him if you can. Otherwise, there's not much you can do. She stood up and slowly walked out of the office. My assistant Jackie walked in. That deer has the look of a deer in headlights. I guess it didn't go well. And this one is screwed. I handed her the papers Laura had brought and asked her to contact my husband's attorney and set up an appointment as soon as possible. Jason. My phone was strangely silent for most of the day. I assumed Laura was burning up the phone lines right now, calling me and urging me to give up on the divorce. As I was about to leave the office, I received a call from my attorney informing me that Laura's attorney wanted to schedule a meeting as soon as possible. Why not? Let's get this over with as soon as possible. I had plans for the future. She would call me back and set a date and time, but until then I had to be very careful around Laura. Minimize contact with her in and out of the house and generally not do anything that could be perceived as a threat. When I got home, I saw Laura's car parked in the driveway. I walked into the house and the kids were there sitting with their mother. She was pretending to be interested in their homework. They looked at me with an expression that said, "What the hell is she doing?" I didn't say anything to Laura. I chatted with Janie and Beth. I made dinner for the four of us. Laura set the dishes on the table and got out knives, forks, spoons, and glasses. Dinner was interrupted only by the girls talking and telling me what was going to happen for the rest of the week. Everything was very normal, except that we had Laura with us. She wasn't busy with work as usual because she spent the afternoon with her boyfriend. After the kids went to bed, I went to our home office to do some errands and send a couple emails. Laura appeared in the doorway. "Jason, can we talk?" "It's a little late for that, isn't it?" "I don't want a divorce. I want us to be a family like we should be." "It's a little late for that, isn't it?" "How can I show you that you're the one I love?" "It's a little late, isn't it?" "Why won't you talk to me, Jason?" "Don't you understand at all? I've tried to talk to you so many times over the last 2 years, and all you've done is ignore me and ignore our children. Well, now I'm ready to ignore you. I want us to go to marriage counseling." "So you can do what? Spend time and money and then we'll go into divorce?" "I don't think so. You can go to all the therapists and counselors you want, just not with me." Her voice took on a pleading tone. "Jason, we can't get a divorce. The kids would get hurt." I interrupted her. "Oh, that's a good one. The kids will get hurt. And you didn't bother to think that the kids would be affected by all the time you spent with Scott. Your narcissism is showing loud and clear, Laura." I almost screamed. "What?" "Oh, for heaven's sake, go see that therapist. The sooner the better. Better yet, I suggest you pack a big bag, and go to your precious Scott, and stay there. Get away from me." I squeezed past Laura and headed for the bedroom I'd been sleeping in for months. Deciding that a hot shower was what I needed, I went into the bathroom. As I stood under the jets of hot water trying to get my thoughts in order, I saw the door open and Laura standing there. She started to push the shower door open when I stopped her. "What the hell are you doing?" "Please, Jace, let me in. We're family. I need you. You need me." I held up my hand. "Stop it. You took me and the kids for granted for a long time, and now that you've been judged for it, you're trying to butter it up and get out of the consequences of having fun with your boyfriend. Screw you. Get out." Laura stared at me for a few seconds and then turned and walked away. After finishing my shower, I got dressed and went to check on the kids. Laura's car was gone. An hour later, "Scott." The bell rang at my door. Shit. Who the hell is that? I thought. Now was a very inconvenient time. The next moment, my phone burst into a text message. I picked it up and saw that Laura had sent me 3 texts in the last hour. Shit. "Scott, baby, who's there?" It was Marie. "A friend. I'll tell them it's not a good time. You stay here and I'll handle this." I got out of bed, put on my boxer briefs, grabbed my phone, and went into the kitchen. Shit. I wasn't supposed to see Laura until Thursday. What did she need? I picked up the phone. "Hello." "It's me, honey." "What's going on?" "Open the door." I waited for a while, trying to figure out what to do. I'd been dating Marie for a few months now, and she was a dynamo in bed. She was also good-looking and liked to do things. Laura's presence was a complication I didn't need at all right now. I knew her marriage was going to hell, and I realized it was time to end it with her. But I didn't plan to do it at this very moment. Shit. "Now's not a good time. I'll call you in the morning." "Scott, I just need to come in and talk to you." In the background, I heard other people enter the building. Then Laura said, "Oh, thank you," and then the phone went off. Damn, someone let her in as they came in or out. Damn. 3 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. "Scott, it's me! Let me in, please!" At that moment, Marie came out of the bedroom. She was wearing a large t-shirt and a curious look on her face. What's going on? I had to think fast. It's an old girlfriend. I don't know what she's doing here. Maybe she had a bad breakup and wants to talk. Are you going to open the door? Slowly, I walked to the door, looked through the peephole, then turned the lock and the doorknob. Marie was standing in the kitchen with a glass of water. When I opened the door, Laura walked into the room with a bag over her shoulder. She saw Marie and stopped. Marie saw her and stopped too. Without saying a word, she set the glass down and headed for the bedroom. 10 seconds later, she was already dressing and putting on her coat to leave. Hurrying out the door, she said, "Don't bother calling me." Well, it was over quickly. And then Laura watched Marie leave and then looked at me and asked, "Who is she?" I shook my head. "What do you want, Laura?" And she set her bag on the couch and looked around the room. On the table were the dishes left over from my meal with Marie. And then it hit her. She had guessed. I went into the bedroom, put on jeans and a shirt, went back to the kitchen, and got a beer out of the refrigerator. Laura sat down on the couch. "Why are you here tonight? We weren't going out until Thursday." And then I did the math. "Damn, your husband kicked you out, didn't he?" She nodded slowly. I continued. "And you thought you could stay here," I said in a tone of resignation. "Shit." "What the hell did you do? Laura?" She swallowed. "Can I get a drink?" I went to the kitchen and brought her a glass of wine that I knew she liked. I held it out to her and she took a big sip. "He's divorcing me." "Oh. He told me he didn't want me to be his wife anymore." "How can you blame him? You and I have been having fun for a long time. I'm surprised he put up with all this crap for so long. What happened to your plan to get him back into bed with you?" "Dad, he didn't want to come near me. Said he didn't want sloppy seconds." "Well," I exhaled, "you're totally screwed, and in more ways than you'd like. I can be pretty witty when I want to be. So, what are you doing here? Why did you come here? Marie wasn't impressed, by the way. I think it's all been decided." Laura spent the night with me. Marie was out the door, so why not have fun with Laura? She was always up for a good time. Jason. When I got up in the morning, I noticed that Laura wasn't in the house. That was just wonderful. It wouldn't be long before she would be working full-time if I got what I asked for in the divorce. After I took the girls to school and headed to my office, I received an email from my attorney. She had received a request from Laura's attorney for a meeting later that week to discuss all matters related to the divorce. The case was moving in the right direction. I needed to hire someone to help the kids after school. I already had a woman in my neighborhood who worked 3 afternoons meeting with the kids, bringing them snacks and supervising their homework. I had to talk to my company and make arrangements so I could work from home more. My job was very fluid. 2 days later, Laura still hadn't come home, but I noticed that more things had disappeared from her bathroom and closet. I figured she had stayed with her boyfriend, but really I didn't care at all. The girls didn't even ask where she was. I was a little surprised that she didn't even call, if only to talk to the girls. But she didn't. I called her mother and father. They didn't know anything was wrong in our marriage. When I asked if she was living with them, they naturally wondered why she was living with them. I brushed them off and told them that Laura was very busy right now, and I was sure she would explain everything to them soon. I had to get off the phone before they could ask anything else. I wanted Laura to be the one to tell her family what was going on, not me. The next evening, Laura was gone again, but her mother, Susan, showed up at the front door and after saying hello to her granddaughters, sat down at the kitchen table and in a very clear voice said directly to me, "What the hell is going on?" I spent almost 2 hours talking to her. There was no point in holding back. It would all come out eventually anyway. I told her the whole story of the last 3 years of our marriage. She understandably had a lot of questions. At the end, she just looked down at the floor and apologized to me for Laura. I didn't need an apology from her or George. I needed an apology from Laura for being a crappy, dishonest wife and a bad parent. 3 days passed and Laura was still gone. It was time to pay Scott a visit. You remember you know where he lives and what he does for a living. This time, I used the same tactic as last time. I waited for him at his car. When he came out of the building and saw me leaning on the hood, he stopped and flinched. I waved my hand at him. Come on, I'm not here for you. I guess Laura's staying with you. He exhaled deeply. Yes, she is. Are you here to take her home? No, screw it. All I want is to know where she is. And also, I guess, to know she's safe. He looked at the ground, then said, I was hoping you'd take her home. I don't want her living with me permanently. That was unexpected and a little cold. What? I thought you two were lovers, soulmates and all that. Look, we had fun, and for quite a while at that. At first I thought, from what she said, that you and her were doing well, and she was having fun with another guy on the side. But when I found out you weren't part of the plan, I told her to go home and be nice to you if she wanted to stay married and keep the family together. I thought that's what she did, but now I know she didn't. Well, she's all yours now, pal. But, I don't want her. Why not? You've enjoyed entertaining her all this time. But I don't want her all the time. I didn't let that go unchallenged. Why not? She likes being with you, and you certainly like being with her. Scott's annoyance level was rapidly increasing. He shouted, I don't want her! Get her the hell out of my apartment! Take your wife home! I smiled at him. No, she's all yours. I stood up, leaning against the hood of the car, and started to walk away. Please. His tone was insistent. Please take her. I don't need a full woman with 2 kids. I looked at him. He was battered. You should have thought of this years ago. I walked over to my car and got in it. I started the engine and headed for the parking lot exit. I stopped, backed up, rolled down my window and told him, Tell her to come home? Her kids are wondering where the hell she is, and her mother wants to talk to her. I raised the window and drove away, leaving him standing still. The day after talking to Scott, I was working at home and heard the lock on the door turn. Sure enough, it was Laura. I waited until she closed the door and was in the kitchen. Back for some more of your stuff? She was flabbergasted. Jason, I didn't know you'd be here. I haven't seen your car. It's in the garage getting fixed. The shuttle dropped me off. I'm working from home today. Laura didn't say anything else, just stood still. I asked, What are you here for? I thought I might come home if that's okay with you. Well, I guess. Janie and Beth are wondering where you disappeared to. I figured you were with your boyfriend. I added, Your mom is here to see you. She has something to tell you and probably 1 million or 2 questions. She popped her head up. My mother? What did she want? She was a little curious as to why you left us. What did you tell her? The truth. The meeting. So, my attorney and I were going to meet with Laura and her attorney. My lawyer told me to leave it to her to do the talking herself. She has to justify her large fee somehow, I guess. We were to meet in the conference room of my attorney's office. It was supposed to be very simple. We would discuss the details of the girl's custody, who gets what and how much. Plain and simple. Well, it wasn't. When I arrived, I saw that Laura and her attorney, a woman introduced as Claire, were already seated at the table. My shrewd legal eagle set about reminding me of the plan, letting her do the talking, and then we'd get to the battle. As my attorney began to discuss the details of the partition, she was interrupted by Claire. We can hold off on the main event for a bit. Laura has something to say that might negate all this worry, and we can all move on to other matters, Laura. Jace, I don't want a divorce. What would it take to make you forget all this nonsense and make us go back to being the good family we were and will be again? You know I love you and the girls very much. You know I only love you. I wanted to stand up and start screaming, but my lawyer squeezed my hand in a vice and pulled me back into the chair. I said let her talk. She continued to rant. You know that my time with him was just entertainment. It was never anything other than a way for me to relieve the stress of the daily grind of life. Our marriage couldn't fulfill all of my needs at the time. It wasn't your fault. You didn't, and you didn't do anything about it. It was just available to me, and I decided to spend an hour or two a week with him. I came home a better wife and mother. I came home to you and the girls every time. She said it all like it was a good thing. That she was doing it with another man to be a better wife and mother was a good thing, yes. This woman was still delusional. She had convinced herself that having fun with Scott was perfectly fine, and that was despite the fact that she was married to me. That I would put up with it forever. Yes. And that's why we're here now, to sort this shit out, to make things right, to move on. Stop being stupid. If she thinks I'm going to blindly accept that she's having fun with some other guy, she really should pull her head out of her ass. Laura looked at me with an expression that said, please. I looked back at her with a, really? expression. My lawyer coughed and decided it was time to make some money. Everyone, I think we need to start addressing the main issues of this divorce. Claire looked at her client and nodded her head. The haggling began. I stopped listening to the bickering between the attorneys. I was ready to take the case to court if Laura nipped at my heels and refused my offer. I wanted custody of the kids and the house. That was it, nothing else. Laura could have all the bank accounts and her car. Hell, even my car. I didn't care. Everything else didn't matter. If she wanted to blow off her family, let her live with the consequences. So, the lawyers racked up their fees by emailing each other, which is often the case in divorce. It was all for nothing. Eventually, the attorney convinced Laura to sign the agreement. It seems that when my legal eagle provided Laura's attorney, Claire, with all the information about how much time Laura had actually spent with her family over the past 3 years, and especially over the past 18 months, it was enough to convince Claire that if we had to take all of this to a family court judge, nothing good would come of it for Laura. In the end, she reluctantly agreed to my divorce terms. Now I just had to make sure it didn't affect my daughters any more than necessary. Laura. At first, I refused to sign the divorce agreement Jason wanted. I wanted my family, and I wasn't going to settle for less. Why did he have to be such a pig-headed asshole? Why did he have to want to destroy our family? What I did when I was away from him and the kids had no effect on them. Jason didn't give up anything when I was with Scott. Why couldn't he let me have some for myself? Why couldn't he? Claire told me that if Jason forced us to go to court, she was sure the judge would rule in his favor and give custody of the girls to him. I couldn't even think about what that meant. I couldn't imagine Jason wanting to take the girls away from me. Why would he do that? Claire told me that she had tried her best to negotiate a better deal for me, but that was about as good as it got. Prolonging the misery would accomplish nothing, and even if I tried to drag it all out, the court would order a settlement after a year. So if I wanted to get out of the marriage with something, it needed to be decided now, not later. I sat and cried for what seemed like hours. I couldn't even concentrate on the paperwork while Claire pointed out all the places I had to sign. I was signing a waiver of marriage. I was giving up my children, my family, and the home I wanted and loved so much. I was signing a waiver for my life. Jason. I was somewhat surprised when my attorney called to say that the signed documents were on their way to her with a courier this afternoon. Laura's attorney Claire called my attorney to inform me that Laura had agreed to the divorce. I agreed that Laura would be able to spend a very limited amount of time with the children, but that they would live with me in our home. Laura had until the final date of the divorce to move out. I agreed to an equal division of our financial assets and that she would receive half the value of the house no later than her 18th birthday, plus 6 months of our youngest child. She would have to contribute to the girls' education, a total of $100 a month for each of them. That's a total of $2,400 a year. We had already set up a girls' education fund, and I was contributing $500 monthly to it. I opened it when the girls were born. I wanted to make sure they could afford any college or university they wanted to go to. Laura kept her car, and she could take any furniture she wanted out of the house to furnish where she was going to live. I didn't care about any of that. I even offered to pay for the bunk beds the girls would sleep on in Laura's new home. In the end, I wanted her out of our lives, and for the girls and I to have less stress. The insecurity of having a wife and the girls having a mother was slowly killing me. At least now I knew where I stood and could manage our lives in a rational and organized way. And Laura could move on with her life and do whatever she wanted. She could spend time with the girls and maybe even pay attention to them and their needs. If the girls said they didn't want to be with Laura, I wouldn't force them. I would get my lawyer back on board and negotiate a new agreement. We'll see. 60 days later. Laura. Oh, crap. I got a call from Claire letting me know that she received the divorce papers from the court office. I am now officially no longer married to Jason. It felt really weird. Things were changing too fast, and I wanted things to stay the same. What was really strange was that I needed to leave the house. I haven't even looked for a place to live. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I haven't told any of my family that Jason and I are getting divorced. Scott told me he couldn't take me in. Damn, and I was counting on him so much. I need to talk to Jason. Maybe he can help me. I headed to the home office where he was located. Jason, honey, can we talk? What would you like to talk about? Where am I supposed to go? I don't have anywhere to go. Do I have to go? Can't I just stay here for a little while longer? Jason looked at me like I had two heads. Laura, you've had a few weeks to find a place to live. Where's your boyfriend? What's his name? Go be with him. At those words, I swallowed hard. He can't take me with him. Why not? You like having fun with him. He didn't wait for my answer. He just shook his head and walked away. I could hear the coffee maker running in the kitchen. Jason had a stack of boxes in the living room. Things he had already packed for me so I could take them with me wherever I went. I had no idea what the hell to do. Jason. It was clear to me that Laura was ignoring the fact that our divorce was about to become final. She was putting off finding a place to move. She was ignoring everything her lawyer was telling her. Things like finding a new place to live. Things like starting to put money into the kids' tuition account every month. Things like getting her crap out of the house. I had to call my dog and have her call her lawyer to remind her that she had until midnight to pack up her stuff and leave. I actually knew she wasn't going to do that, as she should have. I went to the bedroom she occupied, the master bedroom, and started cleaning it up. I took the bed apart and dismantled everything I could. The little things, lamps and bedside tables. I moved to the hallway in the expectation that they would be moved to the garage. Laura, do you need all this stuff? If you do, fine, but if not, I'm selling them. Either way, they'll be leaving this house. She looked at me in amazement. I kept working, moving the bed frame, headboard and footboard, mattress and springs down the stairs into the garage. She was sitting in a chair in the living room, and I could see she was crying. Come on, get up and get to work. If you need all this, move your ass and do something for yourself. Otherwise, it's all gone. After what seemed like hours, I saw her pull out her cell phone and start calling someone. I have no idea who it was. She made 3 calls. Then she put the phone in her purse and I heard my phone ring. The repercussions I mentioned earlier were starting to be felt. It was her father calling. Jason, what the hell is going on? Laura told me you're making her move out of the house. What the hell? I interrupted him. George, did Laura tell you why? Jesus, who cares why? Why in Christ's name are you trying to get her to leave the house? It's a very long story, George. I'd love to tell it to you in its entirety. Why don't you and Susan come here? It will take a little time to tell you anything you want to know. You'll both want to hear it. He said they would be here in an hour. I put the phone away and found Laura. So, are you going to tell your mother and father the truth about what you've been doing for the last 3 years? Or am I going to do it? She raised her head, and I could see the genuine fear in her eyes. It became clear to me that she hadn't even told them we were getting divorced. It would be a shock to them. It was going to be a real shit show. As I headed to the home office to pick up all my papers, I heard the door slam and Laura's car drive off. I figured she had gone to Scott's apartment. George and Susan arrived an hour later, and I spent a good deal of time telling them everything I knew about Laura's affair with Scott. I showed them the divorce papers and the final agreement that had been reached. They both had a couple of drinks each to help themselves digest the news of the end of their daughter's marriage. To say they were disappointed is an understatement. To say they wanted to wring her neck was probably more accurate. They looked at the stack of boxes in the living room and then asked me what I was going to do. I replied that my goal was simple: watch the kids, reorganize the house, and adjust my work schedule. I had nothing else planned. Susan wanted to know if there was any way to forgive Laura and save our marriage. I told her that I had already tried several times over the past 3 years, and each time I asked Laura to drop her affair, she refused. I said that after all, Laura was an adult. She didn't belong to me, so I couldn't tell her what to do or demand that she stop. It was very clear to me that her refusal spoke to what was important to her, that her family came second. A sex life with her boyfriend came first for her. I asked them if they would be willing to take her in. They both looked at me and shook their heads. George said in a very solemn tone, "She got herself into this shit, she'll get herself out of it." They wished me well and told me that if I needed help with the kids, I could count on them. I thanked them, and they went home. I called Scott on the phone. When he answered, I said, "Put her on the phone." A short pause followed, and then I heard, "Hello. Your mother and father just left here. You'd better not call them for a day or so because they're really mad at you right now." I waited a few seconds until she didn't say anything, and then continued. "What are you going to do with your stuff? I'm moving all your stuff into the garage. If you don't move them by next week, I'll give everything away. Your choice." And then I disconnected the phone. If this woman doesn't want to realize we're divorced, she needs to see a therapist and get a dose of reality. I know her plan. Ignore everything she doesn't want to deal with, and everyone else will eventually give in to her, and her life will go on as it is. A week later, I called the moving company and they came and packed up all the things I thought Laura needed. I put them in temporary storage, counting on her eventually coming to her senses and telling me where to send them. Laura stayed with Scott, who calls me every day to ask if she can come home. I reply each time, "She doesn't live here anymore." The first time I replied, "Shit," whereupon he hung up. Scott lurked outside my office wanting to talk. He was adamant that he wanted me to do something about Laura. She was in his apartment and didn't want to leave. She hadn't gone to work or even gotten out of bed in days. "You have to come and talk to her," he pleaded. That's not my problem anymore, pal. You wanted her before, now she's yours. Deal with her yourself. I got in my car and drove away. I called Laura's mother and father and told them I had talked to her boyfriend, and I thought they should really visit her and talk to her about getting her some psychiatric help. She has gotten into a big rut and is doing nothing to get out of it. I left it at that and went home to my daughters. I needed to make dinner. 1 year later. Jason. "Come on, girls, put your feet up, we gotta go." The last few months have been challenging, adjusting to a new schedule, reorganizing the house, and then selling it. The new place is a little different and has a pool in the backyard. We also have a large driveway that can fit cars, a truck, and a trailer. You just realized that in the last sentence I said cars in the plural. So what's the point? Why do I have more than one car and truck? Well, the answer is actually quite simple. You'll recall that I met a woman, Diane. After I got divorced, we started spending a lot more time together. We enjoy doing the same things, we get along very well, and I asked her if she and her daughter Matilda would like to move in with us. She thought about it for a week or so, and then she said yes, and they would really love it. We talked about it, and I told her I didn't want to make a lifetime commitment, at least not yet, but decided it made sense for us to live together and share expenses. She agreed, packed her bags, sold her house, and the two of them moved in together. Everything has worked out just fine so far. Diane and I have 3 girls, 1 house, and 1 bed. We have a good relationship. Matilda treats me like I'm her father. She loves it when I read her bedtime stories. Beth and Janie treat her like a little sister, They play with her and often read to her at bedtime. We do a lot of traveling in the camper. I am constantly researching new places we can go and things to do and see when we get there. It's worked out just fine so far. I'm not going to rock the boat and do something we might all regret and ask her to marry me yet. The saddest thing about this whole train wreck is that Laura only sees her daughters once in a lifetime. That is, maybe one day a month. She moved into an apartment near work, and aside from the little communication I get to let her know she wants to spend the day with the girls, that's pretty much it. The girls spend a few hours with her and go home. I try to talk to them and make sure they know that the fact that their mother doesn't see them is not because of them. I may have to seek professional help. We'll see if I need it. Matilda distracts Beth and Janie a lot. The three of them are having a lot of fun together. Diane. Jason and I and the three girls are now a family. He is so easy and fun to be with. I look forward to every day I spend with him. The kids all get along with each other, so it just works. We are a family. We all love to go on camper rides and visit parks with lots of things to do. The girls love to hike, bike, and run around the campground. It's nice to see that they are free to play, get dirty, and do things without being too organized. When we're glamping, we don't have to be helicopter parents. The main thing is that I really enjoy spending time with Jason, just him and me together. I can't believe Laura gave up on him by ignoring him. Her ego was so big that she forgot that he needed her attention. It wasn't just about her. But in her mind, it was all about her. She wanted to have her cake and eat it at the same time. So stupid, so illusory. She had cheated herself out of her husband, her children, and her home. I hope she got what she was looking for. I did. Laura. I was out running errands over the weekend and saw Jason and his girlfriend with the girls, and I realized her daughter. They were laughing and clearly having a good time. The kids were eating ice cream as they walked. Jason and her were holding hands. I was the one who was supposed to be holding Jason's hand. Why does everything have to be so complicated? I don't have an answer to that question. I probably made some bad decisions and didn't realize that Jason, well, he wouldn't like what I was doing. Scott kicked me out, and we don't see each other anymore. I miss him. I miss the kids and I miss Jason. I miss his touch and his smile and lying next to me in bed at night. I miss my home. I miss my life. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.